All right, welcome back to Musicians Edition. Today we are looking at number 76 in the mallet side of our Essential Elements book. So the first thing that we really got to think about here, and one of the first things you have to think about with any new piece of music that you start to look at, is the key signature. And we see here it has it labeled in our book that this is a new key signature that we have not used yet in this book, right? So if you look at our box there, it tells us that this key signature indicates the key of E flat, right? Or E flat major. And so in this key signature, you can see there is a B flat, and there's an E flat, and there's an A flat. So all the B's that we see are going to be flat. All the E's that we see are going to be flat, and all the A's that we see are going to be flat, right? And now, if you've been playing through this book in order, a good chunk of the time we've been playing with a B flat and an E flat in our key signature. And then just recently, even at just the top of this same page, we've started playing an A flat, but as an accidental, not as part of our key signature. So you've already been using this collection of notes quite a bit. You just haven't used it in this specific key signature yet. So you might be already more used to it than you realize, but all the B's, E's, and A's are going to be flat, okay? So one of the first things that I like to do when I pick up a piece that has maybe an unfamiliar key signature, or just to get used to the key itself, is to work on the major scale in that key, right? And so like we've done before with our B flat major scale, right? We're just going to start on E flat, end on E flat, and we're going to play every note in between, but then also the A is going to be flat and the B is going to be flat, in addition to the E flat that we're going to start and end on, okay? So if we take ourselves through that scale, our first note is going to be E flat, next note is going to be F, next note is going to be G, and then A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, okay? And the reason that I like to practice the major scale of the key is to get used to the shape of the keyboard that I'm going to be using in this key, or the specific collection of notes in this key, right? But the path that my sticks are going to have to take to go from between the flat keys and the natural keys on the instrument, okay? So when we play a major scale that's one octave, it's nice to go ahead and start with your left hand. And the reason we do that is if we start with our left hand, you can see the way it lines up, our right hand ends up playing the top note of the scale, right? So our left hand plays the bottom of the note of the scale, our right hand plays the top note of the scale. And that follows the approach that we like to take to sticking any passage on a mallet instrument in terms of we put our left hand on the lowest note of the passage and our right hand on the highest note of the passage, right? So if we play a one octave scale and we start with our left hand, we're already kind of following that rule as well, okay? So we're just going to go through the scale nice and easy: E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, right? And just get really comfortable with the layout of the keyboard in this key, all right? So just nice and easy in quarter notes, starting with the left hand. Ready, go. All right, now this time we're going to play that scale, and then as soon as we get to the top note, we're going to turn around and come all the way back down, okay? So all the way up the scale, all the way down the scale. Again, starting with the left hand. And ready, go. All right, and one of the things that I really like to practice when I'm working on scales is getting my mallet to jump from the note that it plays to the next note that it's going to play as soon as possible, right? So right after I play E flat, as I'm playing F, I'm getting my left hand ready to play G. And then as I'm playing G, I'm getting my right hand to the A flat. As I'm playing A flat, I'm getting my left hand to the B flat, right? When you're practicing your scales and things like that, it's a really good opportunity to build that habit of getting your next hand ready to play the next note as soon as possible, right? And that sets you up to, when you go to play the music that you're working on, it sets you up to already be doing that and not have to think about it so much when you're playing it, when you're playing the piece itself, right? But moving our mallets to the next note as soon as we can is always something we want to try to be doing on this instrument, right? It helps a ton with accuracy and just making sure that those mallets are lined up with the note that's coming up. All right, so let's play that scale one more time, thinking about getting our stick to the next note as soon as possible. Here we go. All right, so after you've played that scale a few times and you're used to the layout of the notes, then we can start reading the actual piece. Now you see in this piece we have quite a bit of jumping around, right? There's a lot of notes that go from one note to another note that's quite a big distance away, right? So one of the first things I like to do is kind of go through and identify some of those leaps, right? Because those are probably where things are gonna get tricky, right? When we're moving just by step or even skipping a note, less of a big deal, but when we have big leaps, that's when we start to run into some accuracy issues, or we kind of get caught off guard when we're first reading a piece initially. Okay, so we see here at the very beginning we have a jump from B flat to E flat, right? So we want to just keep that in mind. We're going from B flat to E flat, right? From there we move by step up to G, and then in measure 3 we have another jump that goes from A flat up here down to C. In measure 3, right? A flat down to C. Okay? And that's kind of a tricky passage too, because it goes from A flat to C and then down to F. So we're kind of jumping all over the place there, right? And if we look at those 4 notes in a row, starting at the beginning of measure 3, we have A flat, C, C, F. Right? So a good idea to go ahead and practice that a few times so you're ready for it when we get to it. Okay, then we go back down to C, and then B flat, D, E flat, we're moving by step. And now when we get to the first ending, which is another thing that we got to take into account, but when we get to the first ending, we go F to E flat, skip to C, down to B by step. So really the big jumps that we see are measure 3 into the first note of measure 4, right? And then right at the very beginning, from B flat to E flat, right? So once you kind of practice those leaps a couple of times, then we can start to put bigger chunks of the music together, right? We do want to think about the first and second ending real quick. It is kind of marked in your book here for you, but when we get to the bracketed section on the second line that has the number 1 written in it, we're going to play those 2 measures inside the bracket with number 1 the first time through. Right? And then you see you have a repeat sign at the end of those 2 measures. So then we're going to jump back to the beginning and play all the way through. And then the second time is where it gets a little bit tricky. So the second time through, instead of playing the bracket with the number 1, we're going to skip and play the bracket with the number 2, right? So we play all the way through, play the bracket number 1, repeat back to the beginning, play all the way through again. When we get to the 1, the second time through, jump to the bracket number 2. All right? Okay, so now let's start to piece this thing together. Let's play the first 2 measures, so it'll be a nice little chunk. We already practiced that jump from B flat to E flat, right? And then we just walk up by step, and then you see in measure 2 we have 3 G's, all on quarter notes, okay? First 2 measures. Ready, go. Okay? And then we'll do that a couple times, get nice and comfortable with it. Ready, go. Okay, and again, with a jump like that, you usually want to play the lowest note with your left hand, right? Not always. Most of the time, it's a pretty safe bet that we're going to want to start this on our left hand, right? Now, after we play those 3 Gs, then we have that jump from A flat down to C, and then the F into measure 4, like we did before, right? So just to review that, measure 3, A flat, C, C, F, back to C. Let's play those 2 bars, measure 3 and 4. Okay? And since our right hand is way up at A flat, and our left hand is already down at C, it makes sense to play both of those C's in measure 3 with the left hand, right? So we probably want to go ahead and write in those 2 lefts by putting an L over those 2 quarter notes. So A flat with the right, both C's with the left hand. Right? And you can see as I'm playing the 2 C's, I'm getting my right hand positioned over the F, right? A flat, C, C, now I'm in position to play F, there, okay? So let's play those one more time. This time we'll go ahead and play the C that's at the end of measure 4, also with our left hand since it's already there, okay? Here we go. Measure 3 and all of measure 4. Ready, go. Okay? And then from there, since we played the C with our left hand, we're gonna go ahead and bring our right hand down to the B flat at the beginning of measure 5. That's going to be a right hand, right? And then we're going to have to jump to our left hand for D, and then right hand E flat, and then measure 6, we'll play left hand F, right hand G, left hand F, right? So in measure 6, starting in the left hand, F, G, F, like this. Okay, and then getting into that, we'll start with the right hand on B flat, and then D to E flat. So here's measure 5 and 6, and ready, go. Okay, so that takes us all the way up to the first ending, right? So before we practice the first ending and second ending, let's work our way back from measure 6. Let's work our way back slowly and put all these chunks together, and then we'll tackle the very end of the piece, okay? So here is measure 3, right? So we'll play measure 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, following those same stickings that we worked out earlier. So we'll start on the right hand, 2 lefts on C. Here we go, ready, and... Okay, and then go ahead and practice that chunk as many times as you need to make it feel really nice and comfortable. And then once you feel really good about that, then we can go ahead and back it all the way up to the beginning, right? Now remember, at the beginning, we're starting with the left hand, okay? All right, so here we go. We're gonna go from the beginning all the way through the end of measure 6. And ready, go. All right, so that's the main part of the piece, right? Now all we have to do is add on the first ending and add on the second ending, and then we just play those first 6 measures 2 times through, right? So let's do the first ending. So we are currently at our right hand here if we keep alternating coming out of measure 6. So we'll go ahead and start the first ending with our right hand. We'll play F, E flat, C, B flat, and then one more B flat at the end of the first ending, okay? Here's the first ending, and ready, go. Okay, and one more time. Ready, go. Okay, and then you see the second ending, so the second time through when we jump to that number 2, all we do is come down to that B flat, or I'm sorry, all we do in the second ending is we come down to that E flat at the very end of the piece, right? So going from measure 6, we play F, G, F, skip to the number 2, E flat, and we let that one ring, okay? So let's play all the way from the beginning, and we'll take the first ending, okay? And then we'll kind of regroup and play all the way from the beginning and play the second ending, and then we'll come back and play all of it together with the repeat, all right? So here we go from the beginning, playing through the first ending. And ready, go. okay? And then you see we ended on our left hand there in the first ending, and then we'll play our left hand again to repeat all the way back to the beginning, okay? But before we work on that repeat, let's play all the way from the beginning, this time jump to that second ending, okay? From the beginning, take the second ending. And ready, go. All right, so now that we've done all of that and kind of worked on all the pieces like we always do, let's go to the beginning and play all the way through with the repeat from the first ending back to the beginning, and then take the second ending the second time through. All right, so here's all of number 76. And ready, go. All right, so that's all of number 76. Again, make sure you go ahead and practice that scale, getting really used to the key signature here, the new key signature of E flat major, right? And then put this together. The way we did it today was we went through and identified all the leaps and worked out those sections, since those are going to be kind of the more complicated parts of the piece, right? And then we worked our way back in chunks, right, before piecing the whole thing together. So take your time, as always, walk through the different elements of the piece before piecing them all back together. So happy practicing, and I will see you next time.